anger is not a force, it is a fracture, a crack in the mind, a moment when the soul forgets itself, forgets its training, forgets the nature of what it was forged to become. You think you are angry because someone insulted you, because someone disrespected you, because the world did not meet your expectations. But that is an illusion. You are angry because you were unprepared, because you allowed yourself to drift through life without the armor of discipline. You never trained your emotions. You never questioned your triggers. You never asked yourself, why must I be disturbed by things outside my control? So now the smallest spark ignites the storm, and you mistake that storm for power. You think your voice rising proves your strength. You think your chest burning means you care. You think your words cutting like steel make you a warrior. But the Stoics would call you something else. They would call you a servant, not to another man, but to your own untrained passions. A soldier who left the gates open. A captain who abandoned the helm. You are not angry. You are undisciplined. And that is the difference between a king and a child. A king feels the same pain, sees the same offense, but he holds, he waits, he breathes, he thinks, because his throne is built on reason, not reaction. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire that stretched across the known world, and yet his greatest battles were fought in silence, against himself. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This was not poetry. This was war strategy. Because what is anger if not a breach in the walls? What is fury if not a failure in leadership? Every outburst is a confession that the world still commands you, that people's opinions still hold your leash, that your identity is so fragile it must be defended by volume, by fists, by fire. You say you want peace, but you feed war in your own chest. You say you seek truth, but you let lies drive your tongue. You say you're strong, but you lose to your own thoughts before you even step into the world. The Stoics taught that it is not what happens to you that matters. It is how you respond, because life will not bend to your moods. The world will not slow for your feelings. And your enemies? They are counting on your rage. They are hoping you burn your own village just to spite them. They know that a man ruled by anger is predictable, vulnerable, weak. But a man ruled by reason, he is unshakable. And so the Stoic trains himself not to avoid hardship, but to face it without surrender. He rehearses loss, he imagines insult, he welcomes the discomfort of discipline so that when the moment comes, he is already prepared. Prepared to stay silent when provoked, prepared to stay calm when tested, prepared to act, not from impulse, but from principle. And principle requires clarity. Clarity requires stillness, and stillness is murdered by anger. You think you are angry because something wrong was done, but perhaps you are angry because your ego was bruised, because the world did not bow to your will, because you believe your emotions entitle you to response, but you are not entitled to anything but your reasoned choice. Seneca said, "Anger is like a collapsing house. First it destroys itself, then it crushes those around it. So every time you let it take you, you burn a part of yourself, your dignity, your peace, your potential. What could have been a moment of grace becomes a memory of shame. What could have been strength becomes proof of fragility. But the world will not tell you this. The world rewards outrage, applauds fury. It teaches you that to be heard you must be loud. To be strong, you must be aggressive. To be respected, you must never back down. But the Stoic knows. True respect is silent. True strength is restraint. True leadership is command of self, not others. So no, you are not angry. You are just not in command. You are reacting like a puppet whose strings are pulled by circumstances, not by will. And until you sever those strings, you will never know freedom. Until you master yourself, you will remain a slave to the emotions of others, and you will call it passion. You will call it justice, but it will be nothing more than undisciplined pain, wrapped in the illusion of purpose. So the next time your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your heart races with the pull of rage, pause, do not speak, do not act, do not justify, return to your breath, return to your reason, and ask, what would the man I am trying to become do right now? Then do that. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because in that moment, you are not just choosing an action, you are building a character. You are shaping your soul, and that is the work of a lifetime. You think you have time, that you can afford these moments of fury, that you can waste another hour in resentment, another day fuming over what they said, what they did, what they didn't do. But you are wrong. You are bleeding time. And anger is the blade. Every second lost to outrage is a second you never get back, a moment stolen from clarity, from peace, from the brief and vanishing life that is yours and yours alone. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. But you burn daylight in rage. You spend the only wealth you own on emotion that solves nothing. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you wiser. It only corrodes what little mastery you've built. So look in the mirror. Look with honest eyes. What has anger ever built? What has fury ever healed? What have your temper and your tantrums ever truly fixed? Nothing. They may have won you silence, but not respect. They may have pushed others back, but not drawn them closer. They may have made you feel powerful for a moment, but that power was borrowed, and the debt always comes due. The truth is brutal. It always is. You are not angry because the world is cruel. You are angry because you have not yet grown strong enough to face it without losing yourself. You are angry because you have not prepared your soul for resistance. You are angry because your discipline is still soft, still thin, still paper in the fire of real life. So the world tests you. People betray you. Plans collapse. Storms come. And instead of standing, you break, and then you blame the world. But the Stoic does not waste breath on blame. He returns inward. He asks, where was I weak? Where was I untrained? Where did I forget my principles and surrender to impulse? Because he knows, pain is a teacher. Every sharp word from another is an invitation to sharpen yourself. Every insult is a mirror. Every hardship, a gym for the soul. And anger? Anger is a signal. It shows you where you are still reactive, still raw, still unrefined. It reveals the places within you that are not yet ruled by reason, and you must thank it for showing you where the work is. Do not suppress it. That is not Stoicism. Stoicism is not numbness. It is awareness. It is control. It is the ability to feel the fire and choose not to throw it. It is the ability to hear the insult and not let it infect your peace. It is the strength to absorb chaos without becoming chaotic. It is a higher standard, a harder path, but it is the only path that leads to freedom. Because freedom is not doing what you feel like. Freedom is being unshaken by what others feel like doing to you. And that kind of freedom? It costs something. It costs comfort. It costs the illusion of righteousness. It costs your childish belief that the world must behave, that people must be kind, that outcomes must be fair. No. The Stoic accepts what is, he prepares for what may come, and he trains, not to be safe from life, but to be safe in it, because he knows no amount of anger will stop the waves from crashing, but discipline can teach him how to stand through them. So ask yourself, what kind of man are you building? One who shouts? One who flails? One who trembles at offense? Or one who sees clearly? One who stands firmly? One who acts with calm in the middle of war? Because that is who you must become. Not for applause, not for status, but for your soul. Because every moment you let anger lead, you kill a part of your character. And character is all you truly have. Not your job, not your titles, not your victories, just your choices, day by day, hour by hour. And in those choices, do you lean toward reason or do you bow to the beast? Because the beast is always waiting, just beneath the surface, clawing, growling, hungry for attention. It tells you to raise your voice. It tells you to strike back. It tells you that dignity is weakness, that restraint is cowardice, that calm is defeat. But it is lying. The beast wants a reaction. The sage wants clarity, and the difference between the two is the direction of your will. The question is not whether anger will come. It will. The question is, what will you do after it knocks? Will you open the door, or will you meet it at the threshold? With reason in your hand and silence on your lips? That is the battleground, and you stand on it every day. There is a moment between stimulus and response, a breath, a flicker, an opening. And in that space, your entire life is forged. The undisciplined man never sees it. He goes from insult to reaction like lightning. He is fast, but he is not wise. He is loud, but he is not strong, because strength is not the speed of your response. It is the stillness of your restraint. To pause, to hold, to choose, not just act. That is power. That is stoicism. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings." Why? Because offense is never just about the other. It is about you, your ego, your wounds, your training, or lack of it. When someone disrespects you and you erupt, you are not defending honor. You are betraying it. Because true honor is not something that can be given or taken. It is something you carry, and it is carried in silence, in composure, in choosing not to descend into the chaos that others live in. You are not here to match the world's madness. You are here to transcend it. But that cannot be done through fury. It can only be done through mastery. So why are you still angry? Is it because you think it proves you care? That it means you are alive? That to be indifferent is to be weak? But indifference is not weakness when it comes from clarity. When it comes from knowing what deserves your energy and what does not. The Stoic is not cold, he is clear. He is not emotionless, he is in command, and his command begins with himself. The man who has not ruled his own anger is not fit to rule anything. Not a household, not a city, not a life. Because he is still a slave. He is ruled by buttons others can press. He is manipulated by moods, by gossip, by headlines, by memories, and he calls it passion. But passion without guidance is fire without shape. It destroys everything in its path, including the one who carries it. So what does it mean to be disciplined? It means training your mind like a blade. It means rehearsing the pain before it comes. It means practicing virtue when no one is watching, especially then, because the undisciplined man waits for the test before he studies. The Stoic studies daily, because he knows the test never stops. You will be tested today. Someone will cut you off, lie to you, disrespect you, betray you. They will break promises, they will spread rumors. They will misunderstand you, intentionally or not. And when they do, you will feel the heat rise. But that heat is not your enemy. It is your signal. It is your chance to pause, to breathe, to see that moment, that space between the world's chaos and your reaction. And in that space, build the man you said you would become, the one you swore to forge in the quiet of your mornings, the one who keeps his word, not just to others but to himself. Because that is the discipline the world cannot take from you. They can take your name, they can take your wealth, they can take your body, but not your discipline, unless you give it away, unless you throw it away in anger. Seneca wrote, "He who angers you conquers you." And you have been conquered too many times by people you don't even respect, by opinions you don't even believe, by situations that don't even matter in a month. And yet, you surrendered peace for them. You forfeited your calm like it was worth nothing, but now you must reclaim it. You must build a new reflex, not reaction but reason, not vengeance but virtue, not fury, but firmness. Because the world does not need another angry man. It needs a disciplined one who does not rise to every bait, one who walks through fire and does not shout, one who remembers who he is, especially when everyone else forgets. That man is rare, but that man is who you must become, because anger is easy. Anyone can feel it, anyone can justify it. But discipline is reserved for the few, and that is why it is powerful. Because it is hard, because it is quiet, because it is earned. You are not a beast. You were not made to howl. You were not made to snarl, to bare teeth, to lose the gift of reason just because the wind shifted or a man spoke foolishness in your direction. You were made for clarity, for command, for stillness, in the face of provocation, and yet you roar. Because you think the loudest voice is the strongest. But the Stoics knew, the loudest man is often the weakest, the one who fears being ignored, the one who needs the world to know he's hurting. But the man who does not flinch, the man who does not respond, who listens to insult like a stone, listens to thunder, he is a mountain, and the mountain does not shout. It endures, because it knows who it is, and that is your task, to become the mountain, unshaken, unoffended, unmoved by the noise of lesser men. You must become what the world cannot rattle, what words cannot bend, what fear cannot persuade. You must become the kind of man who is dangerous not because of his fury, but because of his discipline. The kind of man who can act without haste, speak without venom, respond without injury, because he does not act from weakness but from will. And will is built in the quiet, in the dark, in the moments when no one sees the choice you just made, not to react, not to shout, not to curse but to pause, to choose principle over pride, to absorb the pain and return only silence. That is not weakness. That is transformation. And transformation is always violent, not against the world, but against your former self. You must kill the version of you that cannot withstand discomfort. You must bury the man who needs to be understood at all costs. You must leave behind the boy who thinks that anger equals strength, because that boy will not survive the fire of life. He will only feed it. And you must be fireproof. You must become the man who walks through insult, betrayal, misunderstanding, and still holds his shape, not because he does not feel, but because he is stronger than feeling, because he has learned the hard truth. That emotion is a good servant, but a tyrant master. That rage feels righteous, but rarely is. That the world does not reward the loud, but the unshakable. And unshakable, men are built through choices. Thousands of them, small ones, daily ones. Every time you feel the storm rise, and you hold. Every time you are baited, and you walk away. Every time you are misjudged, and you do not correct them, because you no longer need to be seen. You need only to be real. And the real man, the virtuous man, the stoic man, he does not chase validation. He builds virtue, he sharpens discipline, he holds the line, even when no one else does. Especially then, because he knows. He is not here to be liked. He is not here to be right. He is here to live in accordance with nature, with reason, with his own highest ideal. And that ideal is not angry. It is clear. It is firm. It is carved in silence. And you must become it, not once, but daily, with each moment of temptation, each opportunity to lash out, each time you are handed the knife of rage and choose to set it down, not because you are weak, but because you are no longer at war with the world. You are at war with the part of you that wants the war, that craves the fire, that feeds on outrage like wine, and you starve it, patiently, quietly, because you are not a beast, you are not here to roar, you are here to rule yourself, and until you do, the world will rule you. There is no glory in being reactive, no honor in shouting first, no virtue in rage that burns fast and leaves ashes in your path. What matters is what remains after the fire dies. And if what remains is guilt, shame, regret, then what you called power was just undisciplined destruction. It is easy to act from anger. It is hard to act from wisdom. Because wisdom waits. It calculates. It chooses timing like a sword chooses its opening. Not every swing is worth it. Not every battle deserves blood. You say you are a man of principle. Prove it. Not in comfort, but in confrontation. Not when you are calm, but when you are disrespected. Can you hold the line then? Can you sit with your rage without being ruled by it? Can you speak from clarity when everything inside you wants to scream? Because that is what separates the disciplined from the driven, the master from the mob, the stoic from the rest. He is not without fire, but his fire is housed, directed, controlled, like a blacksmith's forge, not a wildfire. He uses it to shape character, not to burn others. And when insult comes, and it will, he does not rush to defend his name. He knows the self is not injured by words. Only the ego is, and ego has no place in virtue. The more you need to be seen, the more you are already lost. The more you need to prove something, the less you believe it. The Stoic walks away, not because he is weak, but because he is free. Free from the need to respond. Free from the need to win every verbal skirmish. Free from the prison of always being right. That is the deepest form of discipline. To let go when your pride demands war. Because pride is loud, but wisdom whispers. It tells you, the cost of this anger is your peace. The cost of this reaction is your growth. The cost of this outburst is a step backward in the man you are building. So don't build monuments to your fury. Build foundations in your silence, because what you endure with composure today will become your strength tomorrow. Pain, insult, betrayal. They are not curses. They are sharpening stones. And you, if you are willing, can be forged. But forging hurts. It melts you, breaks you, strips you of every lie you've told yourself about control, about power, about what it means to be a man. Because the world will not meet you where you are. It will meet you where you've trained to stand. And if you've only trained to shout, you'll shatter. But if you've trained to breathe, to wait, to watch, then even when the storm rages, you will not drown. Because calm is a discipline, not a mood. And you must practice it like a warrior practices swordsmanship, daily, obsessively, with reverence. Because your mind is your weapon. And if it is dull, you will bleed from your own hand. So sharpen it, with silence, with study, with restraint. The ancient Stoics were not mild men. They were warriors, emperors, slaves, philosophers, generals. They lived in a brutal world, but they did not let brutality live inside them. That is the line you must hold. Not to let the world's ugliness shape your soul. Not to let your circumstances write your character. To remain principled in a world that rewards rage. That is a rebellion. To remain still when all others shout, that is revolution. But it is done quietly, in rooms where no one sees, in moments when no one claps, and that is why it is sacred. Because it is between you and your highest self. So next time anger comes to claim you, greet it. Thank it for showing you where you are still soft, where you still need work. Then get to work and let that work be silent. Because the disciplined man does not need to prove, he is. You think you are angry at them, but you're not. You're angry at yourself, for letting them have power over you, for letting their words reach places in you they should never have access to. You are angry because you lost the only thing that truly belongs to you, your choice. You gave it away the moment you reacted, and now you carry that shame like armor, pretending it's justice. But justice is not emotional. It is principled. It is cool-headed. It is reasoned. You cannot reach justice through rage, any more than you can find clarity through shouting. You must sit with what you feel, hold it, turn it over, Ask it hard questions. Because most of your anger is camouflage for pain, for fear, for pride. You feel threatened, so you attack. You feel unseen, so you demand. You feel disrespected, so you destroy. But who does that help? Not you, not them, not the world. It is not anger you need. It is discipline. Discipline to feel something and not act on it. Discipline to absorb heat and return light. Discipline to stay the course, even when your ego is screaming for vengeance. The Stoics were warriors of the mind, not because they never felt rage, but because they did not let rage decide. They had the same impulses, the same fire, but they put that fire under rule, like a stallion under rein, like a kingdom under law, and so must you. Because if your fire rules you, it will burn your house down, your relationships, your integrity, your sense of who you are. But if you rule it, it becomes fuel, it becomes focus, it becomes drive toward mastery. That is what the Stoic trains for. He trains so that his mind is sovereign, so that no insult can dethrone him, no betrayal can unmake him, no injustice can provoke him into becoming what he hates, because he knows the world is not his to fix, only himself, and that is enough work for one lifetime. So when anger comes, let it come, feel it. Do not flinch, but do not obey it. Observe it like a physician observes a wound. Ask, what does this teach me? What have I not accepted? What have I left unexamined? Because every angry man is hiding something unhealed. And the disciplined man makes it his mission to heal it, not by yelling at the world, but by understanding himself. You say, I have a temper. No, you have untrained emotion. You say, I lose control sometimes. No, you never had it because control is not granted. It is earned. Earned through sacrifice. Earned through repetition. Earned through the boring daily work of asking better questions when you want to throw fire. Anyone can get mad. Only a few can rise above it. And those few, they walk a quieter path. They are not praised, they are not worshipped, they are not flashy, but they are free. And that freedom, it is not loud. It does not need to announce itself, it simply is. You can feel it when they enter a room. The calm, the steadiness, the lack of hunger for validation. They do not react. They do not retaliate. They respond because they live in principle, not emotion, and that is what you must become. Not a man who is never angry, but a man whose anger has no power to govern his soul. That is stoicism, not repression, not coldness, but clarity. The clarity to say, I am angry, but I will not be ruled. I am hurt, but I will not cause harm. I am tested, but I will not fail myself. Because discipline begins the moment you want to break and don't. You will not find peace through vengeance. You will not find strength through noise. You will not find clarity by chasing the storm. Because what you chase owns you. And anger is always a chase. You chase the apology. The recognition. The moment where they say, you were right, but that moment may never come. And the Stoic has already accepted that. He does not wait for others to make peace. He is peace. He does not wait for the world to be just. He is justice. In how he lives, how he acts, how he refuses to surrender his principles to the chaos of other people. So when you feel anger, ask yourself, what am I still chasing? Approval, control, revenge? Because you cannot hold a sword and reach for peace at the same time. You must choose. Do you want to win the argument or win back your soul? Do you want to be feared or be free? Because fear fades, rage fades, but the consequences, those linger. And what you say in a moment of fire can become a scar on someone else's life and yours. So you must train not just your hands, not just your habits, but your tongue. Hold it like a blade, polish it with wisdom, sheath it with discipline and draw it only in virtue. Because there is no virtue in speaking every truth the moment you feel it. There is only ego. And ego is the loudest coward of all. It cannot sit in discomfort. It cannot wait. It must speak. It must strike. It must remind the world of its importance. But the Stoic, he does not need to be heard to know his worth. He does not need to prove anything to anyone, not even himself. He proves it through how he lives, through what he doesn't say, through what he doesn't do. That is where real power hides, in restraint. Not because you are scared, but because you are no longer ruled by fear. You do not need to defend your name at every turn. You do not need to correct every falsehood. You do not need to raise your voice to be felt, because your presence is your statement. Your calm is your resistance. Your silence is your weapon. And the man who learns that, he becomes untouchable. He walks through fire and does not flinch. He is slandered and does not react. He is betrayed and still chooses what is right, not because it is easy, but because it is his. That is discipline. That is philosophy in action, not in books, not in lectures, but in the battlefield of daily life. Where insults come like arrows, where plans break, where people fail you, and your only weapon is not anger, but self-mastery. Do you have it? Have you trained for it? Have you faced yourself long enough to stop lying about what sets you off? Because the undisciplined man always has a reason. It's just the way I am. They crossed the line. I have every right to be angry, and maybe you do. But Stoicism isn't about what you have the right to do. It's about what is right to do, even when no one else sees it, even when no one claps for it. Especially then. So choose the harder path. Hold the line longer than you think you can. Say less than you want to. Wait one breath longer before you speak. Because sometimes, that one breath is the difference between war and wisdom. Between reaction and reflection. Between the man you are and the man you could become. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be disciplined. That is the way of the Stoic. He does not live for explanation. He lives for alignment, with reason, with nature, with himself. So when the world misunderstands you, distorts your silence, twists your intentions, let it. Because your life is not a courtroom. You are not obligated to defend every part of yourself to those who cannot hear beyond their own noise. Your duty is not to correct the world. Your duty is to correct yourself, and no amount of anger ever did that. Anger will demand justice, but virtue will build it. Anger will shout for change, but discipline will become it. The undisciplined man thinks the world must yield for him to find peace, but the Stoic knows he must yield to reason before he can stand in peace. And reason does not speak in shouts. It speaks in stillness, in the pause between thought and action, in the sacred second when your blood surges and you choose, not reaction, but restraint. That is your arena, not the battlefield outside, but the storm within. Because what you conquer out there means nothing if you lose the war in here, and most men lose. They build empires but can't govern their own breath. They silence enemies, but can't silence their inner chaos. They walk, tall, but break at a whisper. Because they never trained for the moments that matter. The moments when anger claws at the door and no one is watching. The moments when ego screams for satisfaction, but silence is the higher path. The moments when power is not in what you do, but in what you don't. That is where the real fight lives. In the choices no one applauds. In the strength no one sees. Because that strength, it's not theatrical. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. A man walking away. A man staying silent. A man returning kindness for cruelty. Not because he is weak, but because he is free. You see, anger chains you to outcomes. It tells you, if they don't pay, you can't rest. If they don't see what they did, you can't move on. If they don't change, you can't be whole. But the Stoic breaks those chains. He says, I am whole already. Their behavior cannot alter my virtue. Their blindness does not diminish my clarity, because he does not outsource his peace. He builds it from within. He earns it through self-command. He maintains it through vigilance, and he guards it, not with fists, but with principle. That is the way of the trained soul. To remain unmoved, not by detachment, but by devotion to something higher than emotion. You must devote yourself to that higher thing, to justice that isn't personal, to courage that isn't reactive, to a calm so deep no storm can touch its floor, but you must earn it. With your choices, with your silences, with your refusal to be less than what you were called to be. So when you feel the fire rising, let it rise. Watch it. Do not deny it. Do not shame it. Just do not serve it. Let it come like a wave, and let it pass. Because it will. Every emotion does, and what's left after it passes, that's who you really are. If what remains is rage, keep working. If what remains is clarity, you are closer than you think. Because the goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to be master of what you feel. Not a servant, not a victim, not a beast, ruled by reflex, but a man of reason, a man of depth, a man who could destroy but chooses to build. Because that choice, that is power, and power without discipline is just destruction waiting for permission. You must decide who you belong to your emotions or to your principles, because you cannot serve both. One is fleeting, the other eternal. One shouts, the other waits. One reacts, the other responds. And response, true response, requires distance, space, discipline. That sacred pause the Stoics lived for. The breath that turns instinct into intention. You must build your life around that pause. Because in that pause lives your freedom. And outside it, only slavery. Slavery to ego, to memory, to offense, to the expectation that the world must cater to your moods. But the world doesn't care how you feel. The wind doesn't slow because you're tired. The ocean doesn't calm because you're angry. The Stoic understands this, so he stops trying to change the world. He changes his response to it, and in that act, he becomes untouchable because he no longer gives the outside world permission to govern his inside. He walks through chaos with order in his step, through noise with silence in his mind, through insult with peace in his bones. Not because it's easy, but because he trained. And training is what separates the wise from the wounded. Both feel pain. Only one prepares for it. Only one treats adversity not as punishment, but as invitation. Every trial becomes a tool, every hardship a mirror, every insult a test. Have you really changed? Or are you just pretending because anger will expose you? It will show you where your virtue is thin, where your peace is performative, where your calm is conditional. And that is why it is sacred. Because it teaches you where the real work must begin. And that work, it's not in others. It's not in controlling what they say or do. It's in you. In how you rise when disrespected. In how you speak when ignored. In how you act when no one is fair to you. Because that is where character is built. Not in the light, but in the moments when the world has no reason to respect you, and you still refuse to betray yourself. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And anger? It is the forge. It is the weight on the bar. It is the heat that tests the steel. But you must decide, will you be burned by it or shaped? Because every time you rage, you are choosing fire over form. You are melting, unraveling, abandoning your post as the guardian of your own mind, and you call it being real. But being real is not about indulging emotion. It's about examining it, refining it, making sure that what you feel is not just raw impulse, but truth. Because truth rarely shouts. It whispers, and it only speaks when the noise dies down. That's why the Stoics spent so much time in silence, not to be mysterious, but to listen to themselves, to reason, to nature, to the inner judge who cannot be bribed, cannot be fooled, cannot be silenced. And what did that judge ask? Are you acting from virtue or from vanity? Because one leads to peace, the other to endless war with yourself. You have been at war long enough. You have fought for validation, for recognition, for revenge. But the battle that matters is not out there. It's in here, and it begins every time. You choose not to raise your voice, not to tighten your fist, not to harden your heart, but to return again and again to the man you said you would be, not the man they made you feel like. That is Stoicism, and that is freedom. There is no enemy greater than the man you refuse to face, not out there, but in here, the one who wants to be praised, the one who needs to be feared, the one who burns with the need to be right, even at the cost of his peace. You wear your anger like armor, but it's not protecting you. It's isolating you, and the Stoic strips that armor away. He walks bare into the fire, because nothing burns the man who has let go of the need to win. That's the paradox of power. The more you try to assert it, the more you reveal that you don't have it. But the man who controls his anger, he is feared without force, respected without noise, because there is no greater threat than the one who cannot be provoked. He cannot be baited. He cannot be dragged down, because he has chosen to stay above, not as a posture, but as a way of being. And this choice, it is made quietly, every morning, every moment, in every small fire that tries to consume your clarity. And you must protect that clarity like a soldier guards a citadel, because when it falls, everything else collapses. Your judgment, your discipline, your virtue, all drowned in the flood of a 5-second rage. So you must defend that stillness with your life, because your life is made from it, from the decisions that rise out of still waters, from the words that are not spoken in heat, from the hands that do not strike, even when the soul trembles. That is real strength. Not force, restraint. Not noise, depth. Not domination, command. And command begins with the self, with knowing that every time you indulge in anger, you are rehearsing weakness. You are carving a path that will betray you when the storm is real, because you don't rise to your intentions and you fall to your training. And if you've trained your mind to react, it will. If you've trained it to pause, it will. So ask yourself, what are you training right now? In your silences, in your reflexes, in your secret thoughts. Are you training peace or revenge? Are you sharpening discipline or rationalizing destruction? Because discipline doesn't arrive in the moment you need it. It must be built in advance, like a fortress, like a shield. And you build it by saying no to the part of you that always wants to speak first. Strike first, feel first. You say no, again and again, until that voice gets quieter, until its grip loosens, until it fades, and in its place, something stronger takes root. Stillness, depth, clarity. That is the foundation you need, not just to survive the world, but to lead it. Because the world doesn't need another angry man. It needs a centered one. A man whose voice calms the room, whose eyes steady the storm, whose choices create space for truth to breathe. And that man, he does not arrive by accident. He is built moment by moment, choice by choice, forged not in comfort, but in restraint, polished not by praise, but by silence, and crowned not by others, but by himself, because he has become king over the only kingdom that matters, his mind. What is left when anger dies? Not weakness, not surrender, not silence as defeat, but something deeper, something older, something the Stoics knew, though the world still forgets. When anger leaves, wisdom enters. You've mistaken your rage for a kind of armor, You thought the fire made you strong, that if you let it go, you'd fall apart, that if you stopped flinching, stopped snapping, stopped rising to every bait, you'd become soft, forgettable, powerless. But it was never power. It was noise, a smokescreen, a refusal to go deeper, because when you go deeper, there's work, there's exposure, there's accountability. And nothing frightens the undisciplined man more than being seen by himself, clearly, without excuses. He'd rather fight. He'd rather shout. He'd rather point fingers and call it justice. But the Stoic? He doesn't point. He reflects. He says, "Why does this disturb me? What weakness in me is responding to this moment with fury instead of focus? What have I neglected within myself that I now blame in others?" That's the shift. To turn the lens inward, to hold yourself to the same standard you wish upon the world. And in that holding, things change. Not immediately, not theatrically, but quietly. At the level where real transformation happens, where you stop being a product of your environment and begin to shape yourself in spite of it. You stop following feeling and start following form, because form and character is what the Stoics lived by. Not mood, not narrative, not justice that begins and ends with me, but justice that begins with virtue, even when it costs, especially when it costs. Because what is discipline if not 1,000 moments of not doing what you could get away with? What is restraint if not the decision to carry the weight others drop? And what is virtue, true virtue, if it only exists when it's easy? Let the world call you cold. Let them call you unbothered, emotionless, detached. They do not understand. This isn't detachment. This is direction, a refusal to be tossed like driftwood across every wave of offense. This is a man who has chosen a North Star and rows toward it, even through the storm. Yes, he feels the wind. Yes, he hears the jeers from the shore. But he courses he rows because he knows the destination is not recognition, not applause, not revenge, but clarity. Clarity is the only real home, the only true calm. And to reach it, you must let go of every last ember of rage that pretends to warm you, but only burns, because anger is expensive. It costs your time, your presence, your sovereignty. You hand over control of your inner world to the first fool who offends you. Is that strength? You become exactly what they hoped you would become. A mirror, a reactor, a puppet on the string of your emotions. And they win, not because they're right, but because you left your post. Your post was stillness. You abandoned it for noise. Your post was composure. You traded it for theatrics. Your post was command, but you gave it away for nothing, for a few sharp words, a louder voice, an empty victory. The Stoic does not leave his post. He guards it with everything, because that post is sacred. It is the place from which he leads his life, from which he speaks, acts, endures, from which he honors pain without becoming it. The man who does not leave his post cannot be conquered. And, make no mistake, you are at war, not with the world, but with every undisciplined part of yourself that still believes the world owes you something. The part that flares when it is ignored, that growls when it is misunderstood, that demands peace, but carries war within its chest. The Stoic knows no one owes him anything, not understanding, not fairness, not apology. So he stops asking and starts building. He builds his peace from within, his meaning from within, his discipline from within, so that no matter what burns outside him, he remains whole. That's the thing most people never understand. Discipline doesn't make you rigid. It makes you flexible, because only the trained mind can adapt without losing its shape. Only the self-governed soul can bend without breaking. Only the man who has studied himself in darkness can walk through any fire and still recognize his own reflection. And that reflection, it's not loud. It doesn't rage, it doesn't shout back, it just is. Clear, centered, firm like the marble statues of Rome. Weathered, but unbroken. And in that stillness, you don't lose your humanity. You reclaim it, because the man ruled by emotion isn't more human. He's less. He is a leaf in the wind, a dog barking at thunder, a slave to instincts he was meant to rise above. But you can rise, not through grand speeches or polished masks, but through the next small decision to pause, to breathe, to hold, to take your hands off the fire before it becomes you. Because that's what anger does. It becomes you. It wears your voice. It signs your name. It breaks your relationships, your principles, your peace, and leaves you to pick up the pieces. And after every storm, you're left asking, why did I let it happen again? The Stoic stops asking. He starts choosing again and again. Until one day it's not even a choice, man, and it's who he is. A man who cannot be moved by the world, because he has planted his roots within it, not in what happens, but in how he responds. And the deeper those roots grow, the more silent he becomes. Not because he has nothing to say, but because his life has already spoken. You are not here to be remembered. You are here to remember yourself, to remember what the world made you forget, that you were never meant to be ruled by noise, never meant to live as a reaction, never meant to wear your emotions like chains and call them character. You were made for more. Not more possessions, not more victories, more discipline, more clarity, more virtue, the kind that doesn't flash, that doesn't shout, that doesn't need to be seen because it is. It exists in how you breathe when all else tightens, in how you choose stillness when your whole body begs for fire, in how you hold your soul steady when life tries to throw you from it. And the world will try. Make no mistake. Every day it will try. It will lie to you. It will poke, provoke, seduce, distract, attack. It will push you to betray yourself in the name of urgency. It will tell you, this moment requires rage, that justice needs volume, that you must be loud to be heard, angry to be powerful, reactive to be alive. But you must remember, you were not born to be noise. You were born to be form, to shape yourself through fire, not burn, to walk through insult like marble walks through wind, to carry peace not as a trophy, but as a standard, a non-negotiable, a daily act of quiet rebellion against every lie that says you must become like the world to survive it. No, you must become opposite the world to save what's still human in you. You must become the rare thing, the steady man, the thoughtful man, the man whose presence corrects the room, not because he demands, but because he disciplines. And discipline is the only thing the undisciplined cannot argue with. They may mock it, dismiss it, fear it, but deep down, they know it's what they lack. They see it in you, and it makes them uneasy, because it reflects their untrained minds back at them. And your task is not to punish them for that. It is to stay firm anyway, to endure their chaos without letting it fracture your clarity, to stand in the eye of their storm and say, I remain. Not because you are stubborn, but because you have anchored yourself in principle, in presence, in patience. Because the man who does not move when moved is no longer a man. He is nature itself. And that is what the Stoics aimed for. To live in accordance with nature. To be shaped by what is eternal, not what is urgent. To act from the root, not the surface. From virtue, not vanity. From reason, not revenge. And yes, it is hard. It is lonely. It is slow. But so is every great thing. So is every statue that outlasts kingdoms. So is every tree that holds its shape against 100 years of wind. So is every life that leaves behind not noise, but gravity. That is what you must become. Not loud, not known, not feared, but gravitational. A presence so anchored in discipline, so unshakable in stillness, so deeply aligned with what is right, that the world bends around you without even realizing why. You speak little, but when you do, people listen. You move slowly, but when you do, you change everything. You are not trying to impress. You are trying to remain. To remain yourself in a world that sells distraction as wisdom, indulgence as identity, rage as purpose. But your purpose is different. Your purpose is to stay rooted when all else rushes, to stay aware when all else escapes, to stay honest when all else performs, to stay disciplined, not just in action but in thought, in breath, in gaze, in presence. Because that presence, it is not built in comfort. It is earned in every unseen battle. The battle to not respond to insult. The battle to not carry other people's chaos. The battle to hold your tongue when your pride aches to speak. The battle to watch pain rise and not make it someone else's fault. These are not small victories, they are everything. They are the forge, and you are the blade, being shaped, sharpened, hardened, polished not for show, but for purpose. Because the day will come, it always comes, when everything you love is tested, when your reputation is dragged, when your body fails, when your name is forgotten, when the world does not reward what you've built. And in that moment, only one thing will remain. Not your anger, not your titles, but your discipline. That is what carries you across fire. That is what holds your spine straight when grief has bent everyone else. That is what whispers in the very last breath of your life. I lived well. I was not ruled. I answered to something higher than impulse. And in that whisper, there is peace, not just for you, but for everyone who will come after you. Because a disciplined life echoes. It teaches without speaking. It strengthens without forcing. It becomes a quiet invitation for others to rise too. And so the work is never really finished. You pass it on, by how you carry yourself, by how you choose your silence, by how you remain unbent, unrattled, unmoved by fire. Not because you had no fire, but because you mastered it. You are not angry. You are not cold. You are not untouchable. You are free. And that is all Stoicism ever asked of you. To free yourself from rage, from impulse, from the prison of being easily moved, and to become a quiet, patient, disciplined man who does not need the world to see him, because he sees himself, and that is enough. That was always enough.